Hey, welcome to another episode of Culture Cast with Dustin Homan. Dustin Homan is a 4-H Extension Educator with Purdue University, and today he's going to be talking with Brooke Stefancik, who had a trip at Romania, and we're going to learn some of the culture, so stay tuned. Dustin, it's a pleasure working with you in Culture Cast. You know, I envy your job, and that is as a 4-H Extension Educator, you get to meet all sorts of individuals who've gone all over the world, and it's just fantastic.
I do, Patrick, and I appreciate your compliments, and thanks for having me back. This is one of the highlights of the work that I get to do as well, and you're right, I'm very lucky I get to meet a lot of different people. And for our viewers right now, there's a lot of headlines about COVID-19, and it's causing seclusion, and we're having to kind of shut down the way that we travel. But what's awesome about this medium is that we get to talk about traveling around the world, and people can watch from the comfort of their homes. So I'm very honored that my guest today, Brooke Stefancik, is a fellow 4-H educator with Purdue University Extension. I met her last week at a training that we were at, and as she was introducing herself, she mentioned that she had been to Romania, and immediately I thought, that is a country we have not highlighted on Culture Cast.
That is true. That is true.
So thankfully, Brooke was available today, and she's joining us. Brooke, welcome.
Thank you.
Brooke, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm originally from Southern Indiana. I was a 10-year 4-H member, all the different livestock species in my county, as well as took projects in food and sowing and soil and water. I went to Purdue University and got my bachelor's degree in animal science. And then as I was looking for careers, I got interested in extension and learned to be an extension educator, you should have a master's degree. So I started looking at Purdue to see if there was any professors that had a spot for me as a master's student, and worked under Keith Johnson at Purdue University in agronomy, and got my master's there with him, specifically looking at forages and pastures, livestock interactions. So awesome experience.
That's great. And tell the viewers a little bit about what you do on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I am now an extension educator in Sullivan County, and I have a split position, which to some is horrifying, but to me it's extremely gratifying because I get to combine two of my favorite things in one job. One, working with the general public, farmers, homeowners, gardeners, on all different topics for the ag side of things. And then I also get to work with youth, mainly managing volunteers, but I also get opportunities to work with youth through our junior leaders and stuff. So I really get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing your story and your pathway, Brooke. We hope to engage a lot of young people through this video podcast, and you sharing that story, I think, is always helpful for you to kind of see the multiple paths that you can take to get to a career. So let's dig in here to Romania. I'm really excited. As I mentioned earlier, we have not been to this country before, so I'm excited to learn a little bit about it. As we do on every Culture Cast, we start with, where in the world is Romania? So Sarah's going to put up a map of the country. You'll see highlighted in red. Romania is located in Southeast Europe, and the body of water that you see there on the right-hand part of your screen is the Black Sea. Just a few little pieces of data for my fellow data nerds out there. Romania is about the size of the state of Oregon geographically, and has a population of 21.3 million people, which is about the size of the state of Florida. And we'll flip to the next photo, which is of the flag, one thing we always highlight, and especially in this Olympic year. So when you see this flag, you'll know that those competitors are from Romania. All right, let's dig into your photos, Brooke. So as we bring up this first photo, tell us a little bit about, how did you end up in Romania?
So as a freshman, I was in some introduction classes just for my major. And one of the professors said he had some empty spots on this trip going to Romania. That's usually for upperclassmen, but he had spots. And at this point, he was willing to open it up to other classes as well. And so I said, can you tell me a little bit more about that? I'm interested. Do you think I would enjoy it? And so from what he told me, I was excited. And usually in between your freshman and sophomore year, you're not as likely to get internships. So this was a great experience to kind of kick in that year where I wasn't really sure what I was going to be doing that summer.
Had you been abroad before this trip?
No, this was my first time out of the country.
That's incredible. And
it was awesome.
I think it takes a lot of courage to get to that point where you say, all right, I'm going to do this. And then, I think it's a little bit easier to swallow, maybe if you're going to Canada or Mexico or even like the UK, which are more familiar countries, but you jumped headlong into Romania. So you got some great photos. We're going to talk about that trip. Let's dig into some more of these. So tell the viewers a little bit about what was the purpose of this trip and what things were you seeing just generally?
Yeah, so this trip was 3 weeks and 3 days. It was a service learning kind of immersion course. So our task, the semester leading up to the trip, we learned about history and culture of the country of Romania. And then on the trip, of course, we were putting into practice what we've learned just by seeing what was happening around us, interacting. And then based on our degrees, our information we've learned in classes, what can we do to have an understanding of their culture and also how we can help them with our knowledge of animal science in their farms and stuff like that. So we were actually on farms doing labor for them to help them move their enterprise forward.
Thankfully, you took some photos of the animals, which is always exciting to see. So tell us about what we're seeing in this photo.
So those are some dairy calves. So during our homestay, one of the host families had some dairy cattle. And one of the service projects that we did over there was completely clean out that barn for that family and did a technique called whitewashing, which is a mix of like ag lime and water, limestone. And you wash the walls with it, and it's supposed to kind of sanitize and it freshens it up and stuff. So that was one of the big projects that we did for them.
And that wasn't the only thing you did related to dairy. If we move to the next photo, tell us what we see here.
Yeah, so that is at my host stay. So we stayed there for 3 nights and 4 days with a host family. So that is our host family's cow, and she was milked twice a day. So that is us helping her, or helping milk the cow. We didn't milk the cow every morning and night. That was just, I think they thought that we weren't going to know how to milk a cow, so they thought it was really going to be fun to watch us struggle. But growing up, I raised dairy goats, so I knew how to milk. You struggled a lot, but they were really surprised when I got up there and just took right off milking.
Did you see any farms where they had automated milkers?
No.
All done by hand?
So, yeah, it's very rare if they have tractors. A lot of stuff still done with horses and just general manpower. So
our next photo, not only did you help with the milk portion of this, but also animal health.
Yeah, so in one of the villages that we visited, the veterinarian was doing blood draws to test for diseases in the cattle for the producers to know maybe some further management steps to take. So we were part of helping restrain, and we also got to collect blood samples. There were no head chutes, no head gates. We had them in a halter tied up to a fence, and we held them there and drew their blood.
As we were getting ready for this telecast, Brooke made a comment that the thing she loves most about this photo is the young man's face that's in that photo on the left-hand side, as he looks absolutely appalled as to what he's doing, because as you said, he's the restraint for the animal. So everyone came back with all limbs, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No harm, no foul there. All right.
No accidental stabs that I know of.
Just a quick question. The cattle that is over in Romania, is it very similar to the cattle in America?
I think they're more of like a heritage kind of breed and more crossbreeding. So they don't have those specific breeds that we would necessarily recognize over here. So probably what our breeds would have originated from, but they have kind of just kept that heritage kind of bloodlines going, because they aren't focused on specifically breeding for certain characteristics. So.
The last animal that we want to highlight are horses. So when you were at these places and at these farms, what did you see the families using the horses for?
So actually our homestay family didn't use horses a lot, but I think other ones used them more for just general field work and stuff like that. So in that picture, we hooked up the horse and she had a wagon on the back. We were deconstructing some sheep pens. So we just put all the different kind of panels in the back of the cart and she carried them to the storage kind of shed or area that we were using. So the funny story about that mare is the owner told us she will not work without that pony beside her. So that's why the pony is there, because without the mare, it will not work.
That is so interesting. And I would assume that's a miniature horse, right? That's the next to it. Just an unbreakable bond, apparently, huh? Yeah.
I think our homestay father had an affinity for the horses because he didn't really, I don't think, have them specifically for work. He was a little bit more well off than the general population, so he had enough land and stuff that he just could afford to have the horses.
Patrick made the comment earlier, it looks like that horse got rained on, or I said maybe he got thrown in the dryer. That's why he shrunk. But that's so interesting that they had to be together in order for that horse
they had a bond
to work together. So, all right, we talked a little bit about animals that you saw. Another part of our telecast we always like to highlight is the food. So tell us a little bit about first of all, let's start with food production and the photo that we see here.
Yeah, so that is just basically where they would store things. You can see on the bottom are the eggs, just kind of stored at room temperature, not refrigerated like we're used to, which is actually fairly common across a lot of other countries, is store, just keeping them stored in the shelves. They also had, like, when they make cheeses and stuff, stored on there, as well as like fruits and vegetables, just like basically what our pantries would have looked like many years ago.
Where was this photo taken?
Like a blast from the past, I guess, kind of.
Yeah, where was this photo taken?
Oh, I'm trying to remember where. I don't remember if this was at my homestay or at another house that we visited. But yeah, just a normal household kind of setting.
Interesting. Our next photo shows one of the dishes that you had. What do we see here?
Yeah, so that was actually in more of a town area. So we went to a restaurant. So that was what I got from the restaurant. It was a pasta dish with the tomatoes on top. And that was like one of my favorite dishes. So when I think back to my trip, like that's the one that I remember. It tasted really good and almost like a little bit, of a taste from home with the pasta and stuff. So
did you find that pasta was a pretty widespread cuisine that the Romanians ate?
I don't know how common it was in the normal households, but I think at restaurants it would be common to be able to get.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in a normal household then, do you remember what they would typically eat?
Yeah, so breakfast was the thing that really threw me off there. So for breakfast, it's like sliced tomatoes, sliced cheeses, and sliced like pepperoni. And occasionally you would get a piece of just fat, like a chunk of pork fat to have with your breakfast. Just very interesting.
I guess we fry bacon, so it's not too far of a stretch, right? But yeah, I can understand it'd be a little bit of a surprise. Okay, so that's breakfast. And what about for lunch and dinner?
Stews are common with just like thrown in chunks of meat and stuff. A lot of people have just animals this is like people in the country, not necessarily the state, would be different. We spend a lot of time in the countryside. So, chopped up meats and potatoes and carrots and stuff like stew is common there. So.
And then as you're eating this, you're going to get thirsty, so you have to wash it all down.
Yes.
And you got a photo of some of that. So first of all, tell us about the process and what do we see here?
So this is actually like where they distill the alcohol at. But so the first process, which isn't shown, is big like wooden barrels where they put the fruit in. It's usually pears or apples, or no, plums or apples. And they ferment for, a certain amount of time. I don't remember, weeks or something, until they get to where they think they're ready to go. And then they put them through to distill them, and they usually distill it twice. So it's extra strong. We joked that it was their version of moonshine.
So more of a liquor, because when you said wooden barrel at first, I was thinking of wine, but would you say more of a liquor?
It's like a liquor, yes. It's very strong.
And so if that's doesn't whet your appetite, our next photo maybe will. And what do we have here, Brooke?
So this is Toriana beer. It's made in the capital of Romania, it's made in one of the bigger towns, Toriana, in Romania. So the funny thing about that is they'll start offering that to you at 8:00 in the morning as soon as you get to the house. So
I mean, it's energy, and
right,
you think about it from a food science perspective, right? At the core of it, I've also heard it's been referred to as liquid bread. So I guess that's understandable. How was the taste?
Of the sweeter or the beer?
The beer.
The beer was good. I think it was just like a classic like lager. I don't remember exactly, but I drank some of it, so it must not have been terrible. It's pretty good.
I meant to ask you earlier, Brooke, when you mentioned the homestay, tell us how the language barrier was.
So I basically couldn't carry on a conversation with my homestay parents, but we could have a little bit of conversations through our the student that stayed with us interpreted some things as we needed it. I had more conversation with the vet students that were along on the trip with us, and they interpreted things and stuff like that. So definitely went those veterinary students and not as much from the homestay, just because of that language barrier.
What language do they primarily speak?
Romanian.
Okay. Makes sense. Well, I appreciate those food and beverage photos. It's always so fascinating to see what you ate while you were there, and opposed to maybe sometimes cuisines that we see prepared on like Food Network, and it's very different than what just the average person would eat in some of these countries. So I want to get into some of your architecture and landscape photos, because it's just actually some gorgeous buildings that you saw while you were there. So tell us about this.
So on one of our excursion trips, because they didn't work us the whole time, we had to have a little bit of fun while we were over there. So this was Corbin Castle. This is leading into it. It's a tourist attraction now, so it's not operating in any way, but basically you can just go in and see what it was like more in the medieval kind of times there. So walk through and see where, the armory may have been, and even got to go in and see the dungeon, and the like antique kind of stuff that they had in there was really cool. So just a really neat experience to see. And I love kind of the older buildings and stuff like that. So that was just awesome to see all that original architecture and preserved artifacts in there and stuff.
Sure. And our next photo shows a church that you visited as well. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so that was a little church in the countryside. It's very small. One of the oldest churches in Romania, we were told. So when you go in, it's basically just an open floor plan with some pews on each side and a very small, like front and center where the pastor would stand. Just it's very simple, but very beautiful, and just a lot of history and just,
What denomination was that? Was it a Christian faith? Was it Greek Orthodox? Protestant?
I don't remember specifically on that one. I think, is it Eastern Orthodox? Does that sound like? I think that's what a lot of them have, what a lot of them practice over there.
Yeah, you're right, Brooke. I was just researching a little bit about Romania before our telecast, and I think it said like 85 or 90% of the country was Eastern Orthodox. So that was surprising to me. I remember that.
An interesting thing I learned at my homestay, they showed us their church that they go to. They have to purchase their seat in the church if you want to sit in this specific section. And the closer you get to the priest to the middle of the floor, the more expensive your seat is.
Really?
Yes.
That is so fascinating. We always joke here about, people walking into church and a visitor is sitting in your seat, even though there's no assigned seats, but there are in Romania.
Yeah, pay for them.
And when you were there, did you see any kind of designation? Like, was there a plaque or something that said, like, this is Brooke's seat?
I didn't remember seeing that. Just they knew, kind of who needed to sit there. So
don't mess with it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Don't sit there.
A tourist coming in, they would have a place where they could sit, correct? A tourist?
So there in that church, the pastor was kind of like in the middle front, and then there were seats on each side, that nicer seats that were the paid seats. And then I think there was a general section in the back, kind of closed off. It looks dark. And that's generally where women and children sit, and I would assume visitors. But the women can sit in the paid seats if their families paid for it. So like my homestay father and mother both would have been sitting in those seats, but the general population would have been at far back, more in the secluded part.
Huh. That's a good transition to the next photo, Brooke, which was something surprising to me. So tell us about this space.
So this is another one of the churches that we went to. So religion is a big part of their culture over there. And this was a room that I was not allowed to go in as a woman. Only the men were allowed to go back there and see the different religious artifacts and stuff. So my professor took my phone and took the photos for me so that we could see what was back there. But I was not allowed to go back there in person.
Did you get a general sense that there was a large divide between genders, and specifically in terms of gender roles in just normal everyday life? I mean, again, it's like a blast from our past in the sense that, I think the men appreciate the women and understand their role in the household, but maybe that when it comes to religion and politics, it's not quite as much of their place, just like it would have been here, many years ago. So I think it's just a different line of progressions. Yeah, interesting. So we got some structural photos. Let's move on to some of the landscape photos. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about this. Now, this is really interesting. Tell us about this attire.
So this is in one of the B&Bs that we stayed at, just some of their, what used to be, or what would have been like historical attire to wear during like a party or something. And then of course music. So music, dancing, and partying is it's a strong part of their culture as well.
I feel like that's kind of a universal language too, right? Like we like to listen to music and dance and party too. So and tell us about this landscape photo.
So we went and visited one of the people that our professor knew over there to her house and walked. She had some cattle and stuff. We walked up to the top of her property to be able to get to this view and to see out across those mountains. And at first I was trying to complain because the walk was a little far and I was getting tired because we were walking up the side of this hill and I didn't know when it was going to end. And then we got up there and I was like, okay, it was worth it. So just really beautiful, and have a little afternoon up there and taking this scene.
Was this a typical terrain that you saw across the country?
Yes, lots of mountains. So driving got a little sketchy at times with a bunch of switchbacks and stuff and a little bit of questionable roads. But Yeah, lots of mountains and hills where we were, very beautiful, grasslands and stuff. So.
And we have just a couple more minutes left, so I'd like to pan through a couple more of your photos while we have that time. So Sarah, if you'd move forward, tell us about the structure here.
So that is a greenhouse and a garden that's at a monastery. So when we were at our homestay group, our homestay parents took us to see this kind of like a local, the local monastery that's kind of like a touristy, it's like, well, we got to take them there. So that was a place where they were growing vegetables and stuff.
Okay, I was going to ask you what they were growing. Is this on the inside of that building?
No, this is the at my homestay family. So they were rose gardeners, and they did a lot of flowers for weddings and stores and stuff like that. So this is inside their greenhouse. And so you can see the plants there. And then in the top right of that photo is a close up of like one of the flowers that they would be growing.
Were they exporting those roses?
I think they were staying in country. We didn't get to talk in depth, obviously, about their business and stuff, but I think they were mainly staying in country. They might have been staying to the bigger cities, though, for events and stuff.
And I forgot to ask you, did you get to spend time in the capital while you were there?
The capital, okay, I'm forgetting. Is the capital Bucharest or Timișoara?
Bucharest.
Okay, I did not go to Bucharest. We were just in Timișoara, and then we went around. So we didn't make it all the way to the east side of the country down there to Bucharest.
Okay. And let's show one or two more photos with the time that we have left. Brooke, while we're getting those queued up, I always like to ask the person I'm interviewing why our viewers should consider going to Romania. So tell us a little bit about that.
For me, the people were very nice. It was a beautiful country, and just kind of a homey, relaxing feeling, especially if you get into the countryside. There's lots of little B&Bs spread across the way, so you can make your way kind of around the country at these little B&Bs. I think it would be, fairly affordable to go to as well. So just if you wanted to relax and see some beautiful country and get some hiking in and be around friendly people, it would be an awesome, just a getaway vacation.
Would you go back?
Yes, I would. I have a lot of places I want to go, though, so I always struggle with that. I always want to go back, but I think I need to go other places, too.
I understand. I think that, too. I always keep a note when I'm in other places of, like, if I come back, I want to go here. But I'm with you, Brooke, especially through this telecast. Now I have to add Romania to my list, Patrick.
Yes. Yeah.
I know. It seems like such a peaceful country. And,
yes.
Unfortunately, we don't hear enough about Romania, so... Brooke, that was a fantastic experience. I wish next time you go, Dustin and I will be glad to carry your luggage. And
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, Patrick, I want to thank you and Sarah for what you do to get this telecast up and running and published. And Brooke, thank you so much for being here, for your time, for these beautiful photos, and for telling our viewers a little bit about Romania. And finally, to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. We hope that you'll tune in next time as we explore another part of this beautiful world that we live in. Thank you.